Hey everybody, welcome to The Wall Digging Deeper. As we always do, first off, we want to thank our Patreon subscribers. We really appreciate your support. There's so much on this album, Trey. This thing took me forever to research. Outside of the Beatles' works, this was my longest research on anything. But a lot of the background of how this album happened is very interesting, but we just couldn't get into it. I had talked about Ezrin coming in, and he eventually becomes kind of an intermediary between the rest of the band and Waters. Waters was further isolating himself, so you had Ezrin in the middle, trying to get everybody to get along to get through this album. Eventually they figured out two things. They were recording in England at Britannia Row, and they couldn't do some of the stuff they wanted to do.
No.
So they decided they were going to have to move studios, but also the financial issues they were in that I was talking about through trying to go through a financial planner, kind of get their taxes down. They were advised they needed to leave England for at least 12 months. You're gone for a year, you don't have to pay taxes during that time. So they were getting out of Dodge, and that caused issues too because they moved to different places. Waters moved to Switzerland, Mason to France, Gilmour and Wright to the Greek islands. And Ezrin was famous for being late all the time, and this caused some issues with the band, especially with Waters, because he was very much a, we are going to do this album, we are going to get this thing done. So it let Gilmour take a few shots at him, gave him some ammunition, gave Waters some ammunition because he gave Ezrin less of the royalties that a normal producer would make. And he gave him a name tag that said NOPE, which stands for No Points Ezrin. Ezrin later said he's having a lot of marital problems. That's why he was late and having issues. So kind of makes that NOPE thing not look so good in retrospect.
And problems really became apparent between Waters and Wright here when Ezrin was introduced. Ezrin would work with Gilmour and Waters during the day, come back and work with Wright at night. And Wright was worried about the introduction of Ezrin and how that would affect the dynamics of the band, and he wanted and fought for a producer's credit.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. They weren't getting along, but Waters agreed to this initially.
Yeah, because up to that point it would just say produced by Pink Floyd, but now it was starting to separate out some, so they gave Wright a trial run as producer, but nobody really liked what he was doing.
No, it didn't work out well.
Everybody from Ezrin to Waters and even Gilmour weren't a fan of what Wright was producing. Ezrin later reflected that it sometimes felt that Roger was setting Wright up to fail. Rick gets performance anxiety, you have to leave him alone to freedom. Wright himself was dealing with personal issues, a failing marriage, which, you know, of course is going to hinder you a little bit in the studio.
Yeah, and the band then had their holidays supposedly all through August, but what happens is Columbia Records calls up Waters, says, we need a Christmas release. If you'll amp this thing up, we'll give you more money. So he calls everybody and says, let's meet in LA 10 days earlier. Wright, however, who was missing his family greatly, did not agree to this. So this is kind of what happens when Wright gets pushed out of the band. They find another keyboardist. Wright comes in as a session musician, but as I mentioned in the actual reaction, Wright ends up getting paid as a session musician. So when they go out on tour, he's the only one that makes money because the tour lost money because of the elaborate sets. Wright's name doesn't appear anywhere, though. If you're looking at the album jacket, it is not on there anywhere. Well, how this whole thing went down with Wright and Waters, there's different stories of it. Gilmour called Wright and gave him his support, but also reminded Wright he hadn't done much on the album. Waters is furious with him because he hadn't done much on the album. Waters eventually refuses to release the album unless they get rid of Wright, so everybody kind of falls in line, and Wright actually resigns, but they keep it from the music press because that was not the kind of press trade you want before you come out with some massive double album.
And the Wall tour opened up in LA in February of 1980. They did a huge, just intricate show. They actually built a 40-foot wall.
Yeah, they were out there building the wall, the stage technicians, as they were singing. They had this huge video board. It's one of the, in 1980, they were really pushing like technology to the ultimate. And as I've mentioned a couple times, they lost a massive amount of money because of it.
They had like inflatables of the school teacher and the, just caricatures and creatures that they were, the mother and all this other stuff. Really cutting edge for the time.
At the very end of the concert, the wall's totally built, and then it collapses, revealing the band. Brings the concept, you got to be all in. To record an album like this, you got to be all in. They went ahead and went all in on the concert. So I don't know, I didn't find anywhere where Waters discussed what he thought of the concert itself. I mentioned in the reaction how they're not getting along at all. They're not even speaking. He's staying in separate hotels. So obviously he didn't like the vibe with the rest of the band. But I don't know if he enjoyed the performing more than he did in the flesh tour, which is what brought this whole concept about. Well, Trey, another brick in the wall part 2 attracted a lot of controversy in England. Their education system actually got involved, hated it. The then Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, which Roger has a little bit of history with.
Yeah, going back in Animals.
Animals, yeah, he has a little history. They're trying to say that Pink Floyd and Roger in particular are indicting the entire educational system. It was more a reflection on his own schooling. I think there was a little bit of indictment there, and I think it was actually correct, but they start going after Pink, and South Africa took it to another level.
Yeah, they banned this song and actually the album as a whole because it was getting taken up by people who wanted to boycott the school system in South Africa due to the racial injustice under apartheid at the time.
It brings us up to side 2, Young Lust. There's a telephone call at the end. It's very interesting. Really have those headphones on to be able to decipher what's being said. This was an agreement from one of the guys working on the album in LA with a neighbor of his in London. He said, look, I'm going to call you and we're going to play this thing up. He wanted realism, so it's not acted out. This is actually a real collect call place. The first operator didn't react in the way they wanted, but the second operator, who you hear on the album, she's genuinely stunned that a man keeps answering at this guy's house. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing.
Oh, I do too. It just shows again how every little detail of what Pink Floyd does really is thought out and put in just how it's supposed to be. And then we'll take a look also at, is there anybody out there? You hear a shrill siren-like sound effect used, which it was also used in Pink Floyd's earlier song Echoes. And it sort of, in that song, worked as a whale call for the deep water-based theme of Echoes, and it was created by Gilmour using a wah-wah pedal with the cables reversed.
Now we go to Nobody Home, which is a lot about Syd Barrett and his breakdown in 1967, but there's a couple lines in there that I'm just going to read for you. I got nicotine stains on my fingers, I got a silver spoon on a chain, got a grand piano to prop up my mortal remains. And this was supposedly written about Richard Wright, the keyboardist at the time, who had a cocaine problem. So, we just kind of went all in on that. Waters did on that. So, a couple little dual meanings there.
Yeah, and then the final track we're just going to look at is Bring the Boys Back Home.
Yeah, Trey, on this one, you have the orchestra in there, Michael Kamen's orchestra. You have all the sound effects. We already mentioned that the tour is losing massive amounts of money. They cannot bring a live orchestra or create these sound effects on stage, or they're going to lose everything that they have. So they just used a recording. They used recording of the orchestra, of the sound effects. And what that did was it allowed them to reproduce a song that's incredibly difficult to reproduce live, nearly identical every single concert. So I thought that was pretty interesting that they spent all this money on everything else, but on that they used the recordings. There's nothing wrong with it. It was the right way to do it. And that kind of brings this whole thing to a close. And I got to tell you guys, this thing took a long time to just research and listen to. I don't know how many times it's an hour and 20 minutes, so I listened to it a ton. Finally feel like I understand the Wall track.
Yeah, me too.
We both gave it a 9. I believe that's where it's at. I don't know if this is something I'd pull out and listen to all the time. I would. The 3 songs I really like, Mother, Comfortably Numb, and Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. The rest of it, I don't know when I'll ever listen to this again, but it doesn't mean it's not some great artistic accomplishment.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely an album I think you got to almost be in the right mood for, in a sense. Whereas, Dark Side, since it's shorter, it's a little more easy.
Yeah, and Wish You Were Here as
well. To put on. But as you said, the artistic statement and just the grand nature of it is impressive.
Guys, that kind of wraps up the Digging Deeper for us. We hope you enjoyed it. We made this one free for everybody. It's just $2 a month to support us. We drop 3 to 4 of these a month on bigger albums where there's so much research left over. If you want to see more of it, we would really appreciate it. As this thing grows, it's taken so much of our time, which it's a labor of love, but it really does help us out if you care to support us. If you don't, that's totally cool too. Keep watching.
Yeah, and you'll be able to see the entire backlog for all the Digging Deeper. You can just click, I put a tag on every Digging Deeper video on the Patreon, and you can see all the ones we've done them for every Beatles record pretty much. We have other Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, Nirvana, The Doors, a bunch of ones up there. And also, if you sign up, you get early access to all of our videos as well, see it before everybody else. And if you do the $2 tier to get this, you also get your name at the end of the credits as well.
Pretty good deal, guys.
Yeah, get your name seen by thousands of people over time. So we really appreciate you guys for the support for the channel in general. And I know we're both humbled by it, and just spurs us on to keep pumping out some great content. So we'll sign off from here today, y'all. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, we will see ya.